Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast. Thank you for taking time to watch today. And I am not going to forget today. I've been forgetting episode after episode, but if you have been watching, please hit that like button to get this going in the algorithm and maybe kickstart this channel again. Many of you know that we had a hot start last year, and then due to some personal issues that I had to step aside over the off season, and we lost much of our subscriber base. I don't know. I think many of them may not even know we are back out there if they have not subscribed and hit the bell, which often many don't. So that brings me to my next point. Subscribe and hit the bell so that you know every episode that's coming out. All right. I have a message for the Oregon fan base, Rage.
Okay, let's hear it, Michael.
My message to you, Oregon fans, is that this is the matchup of the year in the Big Ten. Now, will it be a preview to a second matchup in the Big Ten championship? I think it's likely. So what I'm saying is this year, the Big Ten is Ohio State and Oregon on a collision course for who is going to be the Big Ten champion and who's going to get that bye. And I don't want to hear any excuses, Rage. Now I'm talking to Ohio State fans. I don't want to hear any excuses about not winning the Big Ten. You win the Big Ten because that cuts your playoff run down by 25%. You only have to have 3 wins now against really good teams as opposed to 4 wins against really good teams. That's huge when you're talking about probabilities of being able to win a championship. So there's a lot on the line in this Ohio State-Oregon matchup this year. And obviously I am confident that the Buckeyes are going to be able to best the Mighty Ducks as they consistently have throughout history, owning a commanding 9-1 lead against the Oregon program. However, and this is the big caveat, however, Oregon fans, if you are to best us and you are to be the Big Ten king this year, as Michigan was last year, and if you happen to go farther than us in the playoffs, then you will have a Buckeye fan who is now pulling for Oregon. I'm not an Oregon fan, but I will pull for you if that's the scenario that plays out, just the way that I pulled for Michigan, the way that that scenario played out, because that's what's best for the Big Ten, and that's what's best for Ohio State. So it's not that I love you, Oregon or Michigan. I love Ohio State. But because of that, if you doing good gives us a better chance to do good, I'm all for your success. However, I want to come out on top of it this year. It's been too many years coming out on the bottom side of that equation of being the 2 big powerhouses in conference. And so it's going to be an exciting matchup. I have not been as excited. It's going to be a playoff type atmosphere. It's going to be electric in Eugene. And what else can you say? And so I've got tickets to the Big Ten championship. I hope to see you again in Indianapolis, and we'll meet up, Oregon fans, and we'll duke it out maybe one more time. But this is going to be an awesome game. Rage has got all kinds of notes and analysis and time that he has spent watching the Oregon team and researching you group by group. So I'm going to kick it over to him, and he's going to give us his opening thoughts and then dig into the analysis that he has for us.
Yeah, Michael, man, what a great intro there, my friend. Just a lot of excitement on your end, excitement in Buckeye land. This is our biggest game of the season, probably the biggest game in the regular season with Michigan struggles. And, Penn State's a good team, but they're not as good as either one of these teams. Off topic real quick, Michael, I was given permission by my wife to actually attend this game, by the way. I know.
How did you not take that? What's the matter with you?
I can't justify paying just under $3,000 for myself to go out there.
I bet you can now that it's game week. I bet you're like, man, I wish I would have paid that $3,000, because if you decide to do it now, it's going to be $4,000.
I don't know. I mean, the ticket prices have dropped. The hotel prices
Have
are
they?
absolutely fucking expensive. Flight prices from, you know, Charlotte to Portland. Yeah, the ticket prices have actually dropped. They are under like $300 now. They were at like $350. Now they're like $280 or something. But
That's
yeah,
not
man.
that bad.
So no, the ticket prices isn't where they get you. They get you everywhere else. So
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You didn't want to do the 5.5 hour flight. I just, you know, Eugene, Oregon. I hear some things. There's some definitely cool stuff to do, but one day I will get out there. But I will promise you this: I am going to go to Seattle next year when Ohio State plays Washington. I was just talking to my wife about that earlier. I'm like, you know, I kind of want to go out there, and she couldn't believe it, but I actually do want to go out there to Seattle, the lawless land of Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That would be an amazing trip. So actually, I'm going to go ahead and put it out there that that's something I want to do now that there's a new, you know, rivalry, I believe, brewing between Ohio State and Oregon. I don't know how often they're going to play. They play a decent amount in the next few years, but maybe I'm going to put it on the map next time they go to Eugene. I want to have plans to attend that game.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about it. I really wasn't like too serious, but when she said yes, I was like, well, maybe. But anywho, let's get into the preview, Michael, because there is a lot of content here. There's a lot of things we need to talk about, and people are on the edge of their seats already, and they're probably pissed off why we haven't gotten into it. But biggest game of the season, Michael. Battle of two coaches who cannot win the big games. You know, let's be real. This is the battle of two coaches who can't win the big one. By far the best team Ohio State is going to play in the regular season. Number 2 versus number 3 in the rankings. But after this past weekend, from what I have seen, Michael, there is a true possibility that these are the two best teams in the country as well. I am not kidding when I say that. Oregon, number 6 in the 247 talent composite. And while, you know, numerical wise in the standings, it would seem they are close there to Ohio State, who is number 3 in the rankings, but they really aren't all that close. Statistically, Ohio State has a much better roster than Oregon. Oregon, Oregon, I think, has like 6 composite 5 stars on the roster. Ohio State has 14. The star average for Ohio State is much more. It goes to show, like, Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama are kind of in a class of their own when it comes to like the talent composite. But, you know, Oregon is at home and they really haven't lost there at all.
Say that again, Rage. What is their talent composite?
They are number 6 in the talent composite, but their star average is like a lot of points below Ohio State. It's really not comparable there. You know, like I just said, I think Oregon has won like 24 of the last 25 home games they've had there at Autzen Stadium. The stadium's not very big, but it's loud from what I understand.
Yeah.
And one thing that needs to be taken into account here, only one Big Ten team has won traveling to the other end of the country this season. I believe the conference is 1-8 for teams traveling more than 2 time zones over. That lone win was the Indiana Hoosiers when they faced at UCLA.
Pacific time did not impact the Hoosiers. They got off the plane.
They went into UCLA and blew them out.
They got off the plane ready to fight.
What also needs to be noted here is that Oregon has had an extra day of rest heading into this one. They've, having played last Friday night while Ohio State played Saturday afternoon. So, Michael, after all of that being said, let's get into Oregon. What is Oregon? Who are they? Well, let's look at their depth chart. And Michael, firsthand thoughts. Let's start at the quarterback position. Dylan Gabriel. Man, I can't say his name. Why am I getting messed up there? Dylan Gabriel, the transfer from Oklahoma. The transfer before that from UCF. Michael, what are your initial thoughts on Dylan Gabriel, the Oregon Duck quarterback?
Yeah, I think he's a maybe a little above a solid quarterback. I'm not super impressed with him, to be honest with you. I mean, I do think he's a good player, I would say. Certainly a capable player, but also a player that I think you could potentially rattle and shut down. And some of that has to do with how you game plan for him and how you can get after him early, and if you can get him shook a little bit. He can be a little erratic at times, and you want to try and get him in that mode as early as possible to try and turn the tide back in your favor. I don't think you go out and play real passive back off defense early in this game.
I couldn't agree more there, man. This is not the game for Ohio State to sit back there and just let him operate however he would like. He's a lefty. I mean, it's not often we play quarterbacks that throw left-handed. Biggest knock on him is his size and decision making, but he absolutely can make plays. Make no mistake about it. He's a good scrambler, makes things happen out of nothing. And they do use him in the RPO read option game as well. In my opinion, Michael, when I watch him play, he's a poor man's Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, I would say he's a poor man's Baker Mayfield. They almost look like the same exact player, same exact size. He's left-handed, maybe not as quite as strong of an arm, similar mobility. I think Baker is probably a little bit more accurate. But Dylan's decision-making is definitely a red flag here. But, he actually throws a pretty nice deep ball. I've been watching some film on him. He actually can throw the deep ball. So compared to our quarterback, Will Howard, he actually throws it better down the field, which is so ironic considering Will Howard is 6'4" and Dylan Gabriel on a good day is 6 feet. So, yeah, man. Dante Moore, do you remember that quarterback?
Not really, no.
He was a former 5-star from the state of Michigan. And, I know we're going to bring Michigan here, but Michigan guys, you got to keep your best players home, man. This is another 5-star quarterback in your backyard that just left. Now, granted, they are back in the Big Ten now, so I guess it's not so bad, but he was a class of 2023 guy. He went to UCLA. He was very shaky there, but he transferred to Oregon. So, that's a pretty good backup there. He's got a lot of talent. So that is their quarterback situation, Michael. I'll start off with the wide receiver position. Scary position of what they have at the wide receiver position. There was an argument coming into the season, Michael, that this unit was going to be above Ohio State's as a unit. But with the emergence of Jeremiah Smith, I do not think it is a discussion any longer. Tez Johnson is the leader here, a burner, and probably about the same speed as Jeremiah Smith. Probably, like in that area of speed. He's very, very fast. He's a jitterbug, very quick. He's just one of those. He's very similar to Elijah Metcalf, the guy who tore us up from Marshall, but faster. Evan Stewart is the big name here. He was the former 5-star and Texas A&M transfer. But their second leading receiver, by the way, is somebody by the name of Trayshawn Holden, who, unlike the other two, because Evan Stewart is like only 5'11" as well, he actually has good size at 6'3", and he's got deceptive speed, and he's very physical. He's like a very, very physical receiver. He's almost like Anquan Bolden-ish, if you remember Anquan Bolden.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah. Any thoughts on their wide receiver position, Michael? Like anything to add there?
No, I don't. I'm not super familiar with that group, so I'll depend on your analysis on that. I will say, as we move into the offensive line, I'll give my thoughts briefly because they're not many, and then you can share what you have. But I think that you're seeing in this Oregon team the influence of a coach who coached in the SEC and understands the things you have to do up front in order to win at the highest level. And I think you are starting to see a little more physicality out of the Oregon front, because that has been really the deciding factor in modern Ohio State-Oregon matchups for the most part, is that, in 2009 in the Rose Bowl, and then in 2014 in the national championship, that Ohio State was just more physical than Oregon and was able to just beat them in and bully them. And, I see that gap is closing. We'll see if it's closed completely, or if Oregon's even taken the edge, or if Ohio State can impose its will like that again. Now, Oregon fans, I know you had the win in 2021 at home. I don't even know what to say about that. That was one of the worst. That was just a really bad day. But you won the game. But Jay, go ahead. What are your thoughts on the offensive line? You feel that they're
revenge for that 2021 game? I was there. That was disgusting. That was back when Kerry Coombs couldn't adjust to the quarterback read that Oregon was running, and I forget the quarterback's name.
He wasn't even
Go ahead.
He wasn't even that great. I guess the year went on. He was a very mediocre quarterback, but he looked like an all-star that day.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, by the way, the weather in this game, everyone, I should have touched on that, is supposedly going to be 70 degrees and sunny. I understand that the game kickoff is 7:30 East Coast time, 4:30 out there. So most of the game is going to be in the sun. But the thing is, the sun's going to go down, and I don't know how the shadows work at Autzen Stadium. So I wonder if that's going to play a factor. It could.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Certainly it's going to be a challenging environment for Ohio State.
Absolutely. Offensive line, the research I was able to get out of this, they're led by projected late first round, early second round pick, and former 5-star Josh Conerly. Josh Conerly is from the state of Washington. Michigan fans, if you're listening, you guys were finished in the top 2 or 3 for him, but you just didn't get him. He's on one side paired with a Johnny Cornelius, who is a transfer from Rhode Island and a player Ohio State actually wanted but ended up missing out on. He was the guy before the guy. He was the guy Ohio State was recruiting before they ended up with Josh Simmons. Now, somebody like that on the other side instead of Josh Fryer, that would have made this line super elite. But, this unit is filled with experience, talent, physicality. They absolutely mauled Michigan State this past Friday in the running game, gashing them there much better than Ohio State did. And looking across their line, they are not the biggest line in regards to height or length, but they do have the weight and girth. And Michael, just to add on what you said, they are a physical unit, very physical unit. They are not the unit from 2009 under Chip Kelly. Now, I wouldn't say they weren't physical in 2014. I just think Ohio State just had a lot more talent than that Oregon team. But yeah, man, they have got some dudes on that line, and it's going to be a massive challenge because I saw them, really close, and they are not the same team that they were in weeks 1 and 2 against Idaho and Boise State. They have, since the Oregon State game when they just erupted, they are a completely new team, and they are a legit top 3 or 4 team in the country.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree completely. What are your thoughts on the tight end position? Do they have a weapon there?
They do have a weapon. So they do have a weapon, and his name is Terrence Ferguson. From the film I've watched on him, he is a beast and really goes unnoticed, it appears, but he is a big body tight end that is also pretty fast. And it's somebody they use in the screen game as well. And to be honest with you, Michael, I think he's better than any tight end on Ohio State's roster at this point. Now, is he more talented than Jelani Thurman? Probably not, but he's so much more smooth as a receiver right now. They use him in the screen game. I can't remember the last time Ohio State used a tight end in the screen game or had somebody. Cade Stover was never used in thrown screens too, I don't believe, Michael.
Not that I remember.
No, it's just we just don't get those guys. G. Scott, I don't really know. I understand he's listed as a tight end now, but we use him as a wide receiver. So I don't know, man. Moving on to running back, though. Yeah, Terrence Ferguson is a beast. He's the best tight end between both teams. He's, our linebackers are going to it could be a real problem because we know our linebackers are just not good in coverage.
Yeah.
Running back, Michael. Have you watched tape on Jordan James, their starting running back?
Not a lot. I've seen him briefly here and there.
Well, I can tell you this, Michael. He is from your neck of the woods, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Do you know anything about that area?
Yeah. It's one of the sports areas in the States. They've had very good baseball through the years and very good football at different times out of that Murfreesboro area. So yeah, it's a good sports area.
Yeah, I was looking it up. It looks like it's kind of outside of Nashville. It's not in Nashville. It looks like it's about 30, 40 minutes away. So more towards, I guess, Chattanooga, or, I mean, not closer to Chattanooga, but literally in between Chattanooga and Nashville. But man, this guy.
Yeah, it's about 25, 30 minutes from Nashville, about an hour and a half from Chattanooga.
This guy, Jordan James, man, he's a monster, absolute beast, a complete back, blessed with power and speed. And honestly, man, he has determination to not go down either. I was watching film on him last season, and he looked like the best running back they had on the roster. I don't know why they didn't play him more, but he's a good receiver out of the backfield as well. I don't think he has the top end speed of Travion Henderson, but he appears as good as both of our guys overall. Like, he is definitely in that conversation with them. But what hurts Oregon here is they do not have the depth behind him. But he is a guy who could easily, have 20 to 25 carries in this game and be okay. Now, do I think Oregon's going to do that? No, because I believe a lot of their short passing game is an extension of their running game. But this guy can absolutely be a bell cow back. He is a complete back. He's a monster, man. And, he's somebody that just absolutely destroyed Michigan State. And, he's had the Michigan State was really his coming out game, but he's had success in previous games as well.
Yeah. Again, I will defer to you on this because this, I know a little about him, but have not really don't have a whole lot of in-depth insight into his game other than just seeing him carry the ball a few times this year.
Yeah, man, he's a monster, man. He's a monster. So defensive line, Michael, I'll let you kick off with the defensive line, man. What are your initial thoughts on Oregon's defensive line? I know you watched them a little closer against Michigan State and got a look at them.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, they were aggressive, and they were, being aggressive, getting after Michigan State too, and they were a fast defensive line. They were a quick defensive line, an aggressive defensive line, and it appeared that they had some fast, aggressive linebackers as well. But I know we're not to that unit yet, but they were working pretty nicely together to kind of stifle the Michigan State offense.
For sure, man, for sure. So let me just get into a little bit of like who they are personnel wise. I got to be honest, Michael, this is the best unit on their team, which is crazy considering what we just discussed with their offense. Absolute monsters. Jordan Birch is the big one here. Former 5-star from Hammond School, right down the road from me in Columbia, South Carolina. It's an interesting that a person in Columbia, South Carolina, and I guess now from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, is going out to Oregon to play football. But do you remember? Do you happen to remember when Julian Fleming played on ESPN back in the day, Michael? He was on ESPN against a team in South Carolina.
Yes, I didn't see it, but I do remember that he was on.
I was at that game.
Okay.
I was at that game. I made the drive down, and they were playing against Jordan Birch's school. Now, in person, Jordan Birch didn't overly impress me. Catawissa, I believe, or Columbian. I forget the Columbiana or whatever their name is, where Julian Fleming went to school, destroyed them. Julian Fleming didn't do much in the game. He didn't have a quarterback at the time who could throw the forward pass, but he has become an absolute monster. Jordan Birch is the best defensive lineman on either side on either of these teams. Like, it's crazy to think that he's 6'6", 295 pounds for how quick he is and can generate pressure on teams immediately. He's like the ultimate 3 technique. He was listed as an edge coming out of high school, and he's got edge speed. They have a true nose tackle on this roster by the name of Jamari Caldwell, 6'1", 340 pounds, a true 1 technique. And that is somebody of that size. Ohio State doesn't even have on their roster. Caden McDonald isn't even that big. And let's not forget about our old friend Mateo Uiagalelei. He's second on their team with 3.5 sacks, and you can see the explosiveness he possesses when rushing off of the edge. Really big miss by Ohio State here in the recruiting game by Larry Johnson. You should have got him, should have paid him, whatever. But now you're playing against him, and you got to face him. So, you know, not only did you not get him to use him for ourselves, but now we have to go against him, which is like a double negative. So this defensive line unit, they're probably the best defensive line unit in the country. I would like to see a better one, but I have not seen a better line unit in the country, Michael. They are that good.
Well, that's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, they certainly were impressive to me. But moving on to the linebackers, Jay, as you move on to the linebackers, you take it for just a moment. I've got to get a back support. I'm going to not make it through the rest of the show. So get us going into the linebackers, and I'll be back in just a moment. I've pretty much said what I'm going to say about the linebackers anyway, just that they worked very well in that 3-4 defense with the defensive line. So those are kind of my thoughts. So if you need to move into the secondary before I get back, then you go right ahead.
Sounds good, Michael. Sounds good. Everybody, man, I've told Michael that he needs to get like a new chair in there. I think that chair, as you can see, is like a little small and almost like too sturdy, I guess. It has like bad back support or something. So, yeah, man, he needs to get a new chair in there. But the linebackers position, Oregon fans, if I were to say this is the weakest spot on your roster, I mean, Bryce Bedeker, I don't know how to say his name, is your leading tackler, is the leading tackler for the Oregon Ducks there. He's good, but he's not like a super athlete, composite 3-star player. Jeffrey Bassa is, a former safety that converted to linebacker, so they definitely have some extra speed there because of it. And, it's a unit that's, it's a solid unit. They definitely feast off of what Oregon's, defensive line provides for them and the havoc Oregon creates in the front four. So, yeah, their linebackers definitely feast. I'm curious what they're going to do against backs like Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins and the Ohio State screen game with our receivers. So, our receivers are big and physical and fast. So it just makes you wonder what they're going to do to adjust to that. But again, if Oregon's defensive line can hang in there, like it makes the linebackers' job that much easier. So moving on to the secondary. And Ohio State fans, I'm watching Oregon here, and I wouldn't say this unit is as weak as the linebacker unit, but this is an area where Ohio State could get them. So this unit, these guys are very fast as a unit, but they are not ball hawks. The biggest thing that sticks out to me after I look at Oregon's roster is the lack of length across the board. All of them are 5'10", which is just diminutive for a college secondary. All of them are composite 5 or 3 stars in recruiting outside of Tysheem Johnson. Now, the best corner on this roster is Jabbar Muhammad. For instance, Jabbar Muhammad is a former Washington player. A former Washington player, and I saw his highlights from 2023. I've seen some of his highlights this year. He is the stickiest corner on the unit. Yeah, the guy, he's probably going to be the one mostly on, if I were to guess, probably Emeka Egbuka the entire game. Because if I'm Oregon, what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to put him man on man with Emeka Egbuka, and then on the other side, with wherever Jeremiah Smith is, they're probably going to have one guy on Jeremiah, and they're going to have the safety shielded, so have some kind of shell coverage there the entire time. So, Oregon, their secondary, while they're good, they're fast, they are physical, but they're small. And Ohio State's wide receivers there, you have Jeremiah Smith at 6'3", Emeka Egbuka at 6'1", Carnell Tate, whatever, 6'2", 6'3". They got a lot of they possibly have some issues there if their defensive line doesn't get pressure. So moving on into scheme. Actually, it looks like Michael's coming back. Michael, can you hear me?
I had to grab a Gatorade, Jay, and get some electrolytes. I was getting fired up about the game.
I see that, man. I see that. So here's the thing, man. I just broke down Oregon secondary. The biggest name out there is Jabbar Muhammad. He actually played at Washington last year. So I don't want to recap that at all. I'm just going to get right into Oregon schematically, man. I think let's just move into that.
Sounds good to me. Start breaking down that 3-4 Nick Saban approach for us.
Yeah, man. Well, we'll start with the defense on that note. They are a 3.34 defense. Tosh Lupoy, former Nick Saban disciple at Alabama. The Ducks use simulated pressures to create confusion for opposing offenses. These pressures mirror a traditional blitz, but only send 4 pass rushers instead of more than 4. If you watch close, you'll notice certain players at the line of scrimmage drop, and people are coming from all different types of places. But Oregon will sometimes bring more than 4, but they are not a heavy blitzing defense. But again, they rely mostly on how just really good their defensive line is with Jordan Burch and Mateo Uyunglele. Anything else to add about the defense, Michael, from what you've seen of Oregon?
No, just other than when that defense is working well, and the linebackers are stepping up and filling well, it can be a very difficult defense to run on, and it can be a difficult defense to pass on at times because of the way that sometimes pre-snap it's difficult to exactly know which guys are going to be in coverage. And so, as they're dropping back, as the snap is made, the quarterback's got to see that and know what direction he's going at that point. So it can be a challenging scheme, and from what I've seen, it looks like they run it well.
Yeah, no, they absolutely do. So on offense, Michael, obviously they're a spread team, just like everyone else in college football. They are mostly in 11 and 12 personnel as their base, but it's built on the quick passing game and power run. Dillon Gabriel,
Jay,
like I said, go ahead.
Explain that just for those that might not know what that means. 11 and 12 personnel.
Well, 12 personnel is going to be 2 receivers, 2 tight ends. 11 personnel is going to be 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 back. So Dillon Gabriel does throw a nice deep ball, so we can expect a couple of those. Like I said earlier, he actually can throw the deep ball, unlike Will Howard, who cannot throw the deep ball. So that kind of makes their offense a little bit more dangerous than Ohio State in that regards. One thing they also really make sure they do, and I pulled up these stats and I noticed the same amount on both sides, but what they do is they remain balanced. On the year, they have almost equal run attempts, Michael, to pass attempts. It is literally straight down the line. I haven't really looked at other teams. Ohio State is not far away from that, but it is still like not identical. Oregon is just absolutely identical. And I love it, man. That is the way you're supposed to play offense. You're supposed to mix it up. And I like it. Will Stein is their offensive coordinator, and he's done a very good job there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a good breakdown. Oregon is still a spread team, the way that they have traditionally been for years, going back to at least Chip Kelly. And it seems like they were starting to venture into the spread game to a degree even before then. I don't know 100%, but that's what my memory seems to tell me. So they've been a spread team for a very long time. But I think this is a little different than, certainly than like the Helfrich years, the spread that they ran at that time. It still relies on a lot of short passes. But I do think, there are some wrinkles with the way that they do things now. And I think it has a more power-oriented approach than it had back in those years in the run game.
Yeah, it definitely seems that way. So, again, I'd have to go back and look at 2014 Oregon or the Mark Helfrich years. So anywho, Michael, we need to get into this now, let's talk about if Ohio State were to win, what do they need to do on offense? What do they need to do on defense? Hell, what do they need to do on special teams? What does the coaching staff need to do? Initial thoughts offensively, Michael. What does Ohio State have to do to go into Autzen Stadium in front of a raucous crowd on the West Coast where, the teams, in the Big Ten are 1-8 when traveling over more than 2 time zones. In a place that Oregon has only lost like 1 game in the last 5 years. What does Ohio State need to do on offense to win this game?
I simply point back to the 2014 Sugar Bowl. They need to pound the line of scrimmage the way that they did. That, Alabama had a tough front. Oregon has a tough front. Sometimes you have to go tough on tough and you have to win. And this year they've got a good offensive line, at least, maybe very good. And they've got 2 very good running backs. And so I think you have to approach that and you have to let that set up and open up and create things for Will Howard. And Will Howard, while he does not have Cardell Jones's arm, he too has to take advantage of the speed and danger of his wide receivers. And if things are not open and running lanes are there, he has to take off and get those yards and move those chains and keep the drive moving forward. I think, obviously he has to, have some success in the pass game as well. But I would be thinking that I would be using those 2 running backs to try and set up success for Will Howard without having to go too far out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, I agree. My initial thoughts on this, Michael, is, man, Oregon's defensive line is so fucking good. And I just think that they're going to make it really hard for Ohio State to run the ball. Now, Ohio State all season has really only been playing 6-man fronts. I think teams are scared to death of our wide receivers. And Oregon should be scared to death of our wide receivers because our wide receivers are the biggest mismatch in this game. Michael, I think you were gone, but I'd made it clear that Oregon actually has a very small secondary. They are across the board all 5'10", which is the smallest secondary in the country. So with that said, I think Oregon is just going to take their chances, and they see that Will Howard isn't great at throwing the deep ball. I think they're going to have a shell coverage on Jeremiah Smith, and I think they're going to load the box and take away Travion and Quinshawn. I think Will Howard, I think Ryan Day, Chip Kelly, I think they're going to have to throw to set up the run. Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate are going to have one-on-one coverage the entire game. I think those 2 are going to be the key. I think Jeremiah Smith is really going to be paid very extra close attention to, unless you get him involved in the screen game or reverses. I think that is the key there. I think that is the key, is to get the ball to Emeka, get the ball to Carnell, because this is the game they're going to have a lot of chances to make a lot of plays. If I'm guessing what Oregon's going to do, I think those are the 2 keys to this game. So now let's move to the defensive side of the ball, Michael. The defensive side of the ball, what are your initial thoughts on what Ohio State needs to do defensively if they want to win this game against Oregon?
Jim Knowles has to bring pressure. I know that we seem to struggle to get the kind of pressure we need from the end. And so he's going to have to bring some creative pressure early in this game and try and get after, the quarterback, because like I said, if you let him settle in and get in a rhythm, he's very capable. If you can get after him early, get him off track, maybe even get him to make a mistake or 2, it's a totally different game. And I don't think you can just play this kind of game to just play it safe all the time and keep things in front. I think you need to take some chances early, and I think you need to send some people and trust the rest of the talent you have in that defensive backfield to at least mitigate a major blow by giving up a massive play. Maybe they get 10, 12, 14 yards if the blitz goes and it misses, but, trust them not to give up the big play and live to play another down. So that's what I hope to see. We'll see what Jim Knowles has cooked up.
Yeah, I agree. Ohio State needs to bring pressure. I'm not going to really add much there. Everyone knows I want to see Ohio State blitz a lot more. We're not a type of defense I can just rush for and get pressure. We just don't have the talent at the edge position. Yeah, Tyleek is amazing, but he doesn't get a lot of help on the edges. Jack Sawyer is good. Tuimalau is good, but none of them are people that absolutely put the fear into you. So with that,
and Oregon has they throw the ball short a lot. I mean, I know that I know that he can, that he has the ability to go deep, but that's not like the focal point of their offense. I mean, they throw the ball short a lot. So
yeah, and Jordan James is a beast. Let's not forget about him.
So so you're going to have to bring pressure from somewhere to get him off track on those short throws, and that's something they've got to figure out anyway. Because if they can get past Oregon this season, if we can get past Oregon, then we're likely have at least a reasonable chance that we're going to have to deal with Texas as well, who really hits up that short passing game. So that's something that will be an interesting. It'll be interesting to see how Jim Knowles prepares them for this challenge.
When I think off the bat, where I'm sending the blitzes, Michael? I'm sending them to Dylan Gabriel's left side, because I do like to roll him out and throw to the left. So if I'm going to blitz, I'm probably going to blitz to his strong side and make him go the other way. But yes, there needs to be tighter coverage as well because of the short passes. And
so you're saying bring pressure off the right side to make him go his
right side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Okay.
I would definitely get him uncomfortable in that regards. Definitely have to hit him. He's small. He's not physical, but he is quick. He's fast. He's a much better scrambler than Will Howard. I would say they're about equal speed, straight line, but he's a much more elusive runner and everything along those lines. But this is a game, man. I tell you, Ohio State needs the best guys out there that can cover. And if I'm Ohio State, man, this is the game I put Jermaine Matthews in at the slot. Like, you need him, Denzel, and Igbenogson in at the same time. Maybe sub Latham Ransom out some, because he's just not a guy who can play man coverage. Jermaine Matthews is the stickiest corner on the team. He was a stickier cornerback than Denzel. It's time to use your best players, man. This is a game where you just can't keep him on the bench because his talent, I mean, I think he's the most talented cornerback on the roster. And yeah, again, I'm loading the box as well. Take away Jordan James, take away the short passing game. Dylan Gabriel can throw the deep ball, but I think our corners can run with him. Use Alex Stiles on blitzes more. Put him closer to the line of scrimmage. Arvell's got to be able to tee off. Cody Simon, maybe don't play him as much because in space he's not very good. Yeah, against the run he's pretty good. Maybe this is a game that he needs to sit on the bench more. Maybe you put Stiles and Arvell in. Figure it out, Knowles. I know that
I think that's a good observation. And if he doesn't do that, it'll be interesting to see if Simon presents a liability.
Well, the thing is, it's like with Simon, it's like Knowles has said, "Oh, Arvell is the backup to Simon." Well, you know what, dude? Put Simon. Yeah. So if that's the case, put Arvell in over Simon, and then Alex Stiles will be the other linebacker. So that's what I would do. I would probably take Latham Ransom off the field. It's not going to happen, but that's what I would do. And now let's just move into the offense, Michael. What is Ohio? Well, actually, we already did the offense. So special teams. Honestly, don't fuck up. That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, it's that simple. Like, we've not grown accustomed to much out of the special teams, and so let's just not notice the special teams. Let's make the tackles you're supposed to make. Let's punt the ball properly, and let's not miss, field goals inside 50 yards. Let's not go for a punt block when you have them backed up and run into rough the fucking punter and give him a first down. Ryan, I'm talking to you. Don't call something stupid like that after you've stopped them. Don't try and block a punt. Reward your offense with good field position.
Has he ever done that before?
He did it against Clemson in 2019 in the Fiesta Bowl. People know, nobody talks about it, but he did. And that was one of the big turning points in the game.
Oh,
that's typical Ryan Day. But again, special teams, let's not fuck up, hit our field goals, kick the football out of the end zone. Don't be cute. Again, if we miss field goals, it happens, but it seems to happen Ohio State a lot in big games. We just miss field goals. Ryan Day doesn't seem to have an understanding for like when it's time to kick a field goal and when not. I mean, he tried to that 50-some yard field goal before the half against Michigan in 2022, and he botched it bad.
That's why I said, I don't have this expectation that we're going to have guys that are going to knock it down from 53, but let's find a kicker to Ohio State that's pretty darn good from 49 in. I mean, that shouldn't be too much to ask, you know.
But, you know, before we make our predictions, Michael, I just want to make it clear that, you know, under Ryan Day, this is just not a game that Ohio State wins. This is just not a game. Oregon is a top 5 team. It's on the road. They have similar talent to Ohio State. No, they're not as talented, in my opinion. I don't think there's a team out there that's as talented as Ohio State. Not this season. But historically, this is just not a game Ryan Day wins, man. It's just the pressure's on him. The things that you would think are like, you know, just common sense to do in a football game, Ohio State doesn't execute. They don't do the little things. And it's the little things that mean everything in a game like this. And historically, they just don't get it done. Now, I think having Chip Kelly is a huge upgrade offensively. I think Chip Kelly having the reins on offense has changed the culture of the Ohio State football. They seem to be more attention to detail offensively. Yeah, the defense still is very frustrating under Knowles. So, yeah, man, those are just some initial thoughts there. Dan Lanning sucks in big games too now. Dan Lanning does not win big games. So like I said earlier in the show, can't say it enough. This is the battle of two coaches who just cannot get it done when they absolutely need to in the biggest moments. They just can't. Neither one can.
Well, one thing I will say is, you know, there was a difference in their arrival at their designated locations because Dan Lanning came in after Oregon had kind of fallen down a significant notch. And so, you know, him getting them back up to a level of, you know, competing very high was a significant improvement in the program, even though he was falling short in some of the games that you really want to win. You know, Ryan Day, you know, he obviously entered into a program that had been winning big games and there had not been a fall off. And then he, you know, proceeded to not win very many big games. So totally true that neither have really won the big ones in their career, but different circumstances, I would say.
Yeah, I'd have to look more into that research. I'll take your word for it, man. It's not like the Oregon was a bad program. I mean, they had Chip Kelly and then Mark Helfrich. And even before Chip Kelly, who was the coach before Chip Kelly? The coach who went into Michigan in 2007 and just blew their doors off. He is the one who really started Oregon. I forget his name now. I think he was on ESPN.
Yeah, I can't think of it myself.
I tell you what, I'll be able to find out in literally like 2 seconds. But yeah, man, he was the one who really turned around Oregon and made the Mike Bellotti. Mike Bellotti.
Okay, Mike Bellotti.
Yeah, he was like on ESPN. I think he might still be on ESPN. I don't know.
Jay, in 2016, 2 short years after the national championship appearance, Oregon was 4-8.
Really?
Yes. 2017, they were 7-6. 2018, they were 9-4, so there was some improvement. 2019, 12-2, so that's good. 2020, wow. 2020 they were 4-3. 2021 they were 10-4, and then Lanning came in 2022, goes 10-3, and then in 2023 goes 12-2. So. You know, a slight upgrade to the previous place that had kind of been in, but it was somewhat on the rise. You know, by the time that he got there, he did not take them at the bottom. They weren't at the top, but they were not at the bottom.
Yeah. So Oregon's wearing black uniforms in this game. I didn't know if you knew that. It just got announced, I believe, today. Yeah, it just got announced today or late last night. Ohio State's going to be in their traditional gray uniforms with the gray sleeves, scarlet and gray sleeves. So with that note, man, I guess it's time to make some predictions here. And yes, Michael, you seem like you really know, you seem to have a real pulse for what's going to happen in this game. So why don't you tell us your score prediction and why you believe it's going to be like that?
This is what I think. I think everybody's going to be talking about Jeremiah Smith, about the 2 Ohio State running backs, about this explosive offense. They're going to be talking about, the Oregon offense and, the attack that it can have and the damage that it can do. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a big game. It's going to be on the road. It's going to be at night. It's going to be a big time electric atmosphere. And I think that things are going to start slow. And I think that it's going to be a little bit of a slugfest, and it's going to be hard for the offenses to get going early in this game. And I think that both defenses are good on top of that. And I don't foresee fireworks in this game, Jay. I see Ohio State besting the Oregon Ducks 23-20.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a really, really good prediction there. Ohio State's favored by 3. I don't know what the over-under is. Do you happen to know what the over-under is?
I do not.
I'm going to look that up real quick because, man, oh, man, Michael, let me tell you something. I have gone back and forth on this game in my mind. Like, it is so hard to pick. And I just want to make one. Actually, here's a bold point, Michael, before I make my prediction. I think that this game, I think it's almost better for Ohio State or Oregon to lose this game. There is an argument to be made for that. Do you know why that is?
Well, because you're likely going to have to play them again, and it's much more difficult to beat a good team 2 times.
Precisely. And the team that wins the second time in the Big Ten championship game, do you know what they get, Michael?
They get a bye, which
they get a first-round bye. The team that won in the regular season does not.
And that's what I was saying to the Oregon fans to start the show is this battle, we're probably not going to know who the king of this battle is until December. We may not, this game probably is not going to decide that because I don't think either team's going to lose another game.
Correct. So yeah, I just I don't know, man. This game is so hard to predict because I mean the game is, obviously both teams want to win. I do believe both teams are the best teams in the Big Ten. Penn State is a distant third behind these teams. I'm just going to come out with a score prediction, man. I'm going to say it's Ohio State 28. The Oregon Ducks, 24.
Wow. I'd take either of those, 23-20 or 28-24. Both sound good to me, but we'll be back after.
I just want to say, I was sitting here all day really about just ready to pick Oregon. The biggest difference to me is when I found out how small Oregon's secondary was. Once I saw how small Oregon's secondary was, I'm like, they just can't match up with our receivers, man. Will Howard has got to be able to get them the ball. They have got to make it a mission to get it to Carnell and Abuka. I understand Jeremiah is going to be shelled the entire game, but those 2 guys have just got to feast. Oregon is fast and physical, but, you can be physical all day long. Physiology is eventually going to take over, and they just do not have the physiology to match up with our wide receivers, man. And I mean, yeah, their defensive line is great, but our offensive line is good enough to hold them off. They are not talented enough in the secondary to match with Ohio State. I know they're at home, but let me make it clear, Ohio State fans, from what I've read, they are going in droves to Eugene, Oregon. We are going to have 25% of the crowd inside of that stadium. So it's not going to be like complete like craziness from Oregon. We'll have a solid contingent there, fan base there too. Ohio State is the better team on a neutral field. I think they're just barely going to eke it out in Autzen. These are 2 great teams. And I just think we're going to pull through, man. I think Ryan is going to get it done this time. Maybe it's a little bit homerish of a pick, but I think we're going to get it done this time, man. I really do.
Jay, I remember years ago when you said Ohio State fans invading Eugene. I remember years ago going to the Sugar Bowl, the 1998 Sugar Bowl. And at the time, of course, I'm back in Ohio now, but at the time I lived in Tennessee. and could have cared less about UT football or any of that. So I'm at the game. All the Ohio State fans are coming in. The Texas A&M fans are coming in. And there's two guys in front of me. And the guy has kind of one of those thick, like Northeast Ohio accents, if you know what I'm talking about, like from Cleveland area. And he was talking to his buddy. And the guy said, "How you think we're going to do?" He said, "Well, I think we're going to kick ass and take their names today. That's what I think."
Can you say I had similar of an accent or something like that?
I can hear a little Northeast Ohio in yours.
Okay.
Now and then, but not real thick. But
I didn't know Northeast Ohioans had an accent. I thought we just spoke proper.
Well, many do, but there's also many that have a very distinctive, thick accent.
Interesting. I didn't know there's such a thing existed, but I will look into that now. Literally,
Absolutely.
when we get off of this show,
you'll hear a bunch of them if you go to the city of Cleveland in certain areas.
Yeah, I tell you what, man, I'm gonna probably watch the Pat McAfee show tomorrow because he's in Oregon. I just want to see like where he's at and everything. That's just completely side. I don't even like Pat McAfee's show, but I do like it when he goes on location to places. One day we're gonna do that, Michael.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, man. So I don't have anything else left for this show. It's just a waiting game now, everyone. We're ready. We're locked in. We're ready to go. Go Bucks. Go OHI people.
All right. That's it. We'll be back to break down the game afterwards. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game and be ready for the Monday podcast to drop. All right. Later.